Hey everybody, Mandus here with Maximum Muscle Report. This is the preview of the 2018 Olympia. We're going to get into the men's physique division and the classic physique division. A lot to talk about. I'm going to break these divisions down for you and give you my predictions. I may be right, I may be wrong, but it'll be interesting. Had a chance to see up close and personal a large majority of these shows, starting out with the Arnold. So I've had really the ability to see these guys on stage next to each other and a lot of them individually in different shows. So here we go. Let's start off with the classic physique division. This is probably the most highly anticipated division and show at the Olympia in a lot of years. This is a very exciting division. We know Breon Ansley won last year. Danny Hester won the very first. So it was the first time, though, Breon went from winning last year's Olympia to winning the Arnold. And it probably was a show of validation then. Because, again, you had Danny Hester the year before, who I felt established the division to show a lot of these guys. Classic physique has a lot of genetic freaks. You know, you have to have a tiny little waist, which you can't train. You're born with it. But Danny Hester was very complete, front to back, top to bottom, left to right. All the body parts were there. He was conditioned, balance, symmetry, posing, tan. The presentation was fantastic. Danny Hester was a great poser, which then set the standard for the division for all these young freaks to really know what the division was about. And again, you then saw Breon last year, who they call the Black Swan. He took Danny Hester's stage presence and really catapulted it to a whole new place. And then again, we saw it on the Arnold stage, where the Black Swan really won hands down. I think Breon is going to defend his title. I think it's going to be a really, really tough fight. We haven't had a chance to see Bumstead on stage this year, but we've seen all the pictures released. He's not afraid to put it out there. I think Breon holds off Bumstead. Another guy we haven't seen on stage, but saw him in person at North Americans, is George Peterson. George took third last year, has a whole new package this year. He's bigger. I want to say they were talking about 10, 11 pounds bigger. And he's drier, harder, and more conditioned than last year, if you can believe that. It appears that George Peterson very well could be the most conditioned guy out of the top 6 or 7 on that classic physique stage. So it's going to be really interesting. George didn't have the prettiest of flow to his physique. It looks like some of that extra muscle really helped him, really helped balance him out a little bit more. We'll see what happens. Again, I saw him at North Americans not too long ago. Wow, it was unbelievable. You can toss a coin and decide what's going to happen with those top 3. But again, I think it's going to go Breon 1, narrowly edging out Chris Bumstead 2, with George Peterson 3. This is where it gets just as interesting. The top 3 are going to be a crazy battle. But now you've got 4, 5, 6, 7. That's going to be another very interesting battle. Regan Grimes, who's now sucked all the way down, we already know, from the Open. This has been a topic of discussion all year. He went into New York and won. A lot of people said it's not a classic look. Some people said, of course it is. It wasn't quite tight enough, hard enough. They didn't think he could stand up next to the other guys. Well, he's had to stay sucked down all this time to fit into that division. And with everything we've seen released, he is getting harder and tighter and drier. So he's starting to fit into that division. Will that show on stage here this weekend? I believe so. He had a really small waist for an open guy. Doesn't mean it's going to be small compared to a Bumstead or a Peterson or a Terrence Ruffin. But he has big, full, round muscle belly, so it should give that illusion, be interesting. Terrence Ruffin, him and Breon, two of the best posers the sport has ever seen. Terrence Ruffin has added some more size, already had great wheels, needed to bring the upper body up. We've seen that that's happened. So I think that's where you're going to see things fall. You're going to see Regan and Ruffin fighting for that 4 or 5 spot. And another topic of discussion here, ever since this guy won the Chicago Pro, is Wesley Visser. A lot of people don't know. There was some problems with his flight. They say, oh, that's not a classic look, or he wasn't hard enough, he wasn't dry enough. We talked to him after the show. I talked to him, his mom, his dad, his trainer. They had connection problems. They missed one of their legs of their flights. They got in a day late. They couldn't do all the things they needed to, so there was travel issues. So, of course, he wasn't as dry or as tight as he needed to be when you're traveling that far. So I expect to see a vastly improved version of Wesley Visser. I think he's going to be in that first call-out. A very different-looking physique from the rest of the guys. I hope we get to see Wesley Visser standing next to Chris Bumstead at some point. If there's going to be another physique that is somewhat similar, I think those are the two guys. They're both a little bit taller, really wide. Again, big, full, round muscle bellies. Those are two of the bigger athletes in this lineup. I think it's going to be really interesting. And then you've got Arash, a seasoned veteran that's still out there. I think we're going to see Arash slide a little bit, though, with these other guys coming in. I think Terrence Ruffin's going to make a jump. Regan Grimes is going to make a jump. Wesley Visser is going to be in that first call-out. Where it's going to shake out, Regan, Ruffin, Visser, Arash, it's going to be really interesting. But this is going to be a great, great, great lineup. To roll out the top 10, you've got Henry Pierre out of Canada. We saw him look fantastic in Tampa. Steve Loris, we saw him win in Pittsburgh. Crazy, crazy shape. The numbers from the waist to from the shoulders to the waist and the quad sweeps, unbelievable. Wasn't hard and dry enough. We'll see if he gets that straightened out. Encourage Opara. So this top 10 lineup is something else. So Breon 1, Chris Bumstead 2, George Peterson 3, Regan Grimes 4, Terrence Ruffin 5, Wesley Visser 6, Arash 7. That's where I see the top 7 shaking out. Could be right, could be wrong. Have no idea. But again, have had a chance to see just about all of these guys in person on stage over the last 2 years. So that's what I anticipate. That's how I anticipate things shaking out this weekend here in Las Vegas. But what an exciting show it's going to be. Let's move on to the men's physique division. Another highly anticipated division. This is probably the most controversial division. For whatever reason, you've got these guys who just go after each other on social media, show after show, week after week, month after month. It's been a couple years now. These guys, it's a dogfight. Some of them, it's just competitiveness. Some of them genuinely don't like each other. Where it all starts, nobody knows, nor do any of us really care. All we know is none of them wants to lose to the other one, seemingly worse than any other division. They attack each other constantly. I guess what will shut everybody up is going to be how things finish on the Olympia stage this weekend. Now, you've got the champ, Jeremy Buendia, who's been the champ for years. We all agree you have to knock the champ out, but he had a major injury and had major surgery. I just can't see, with as close as the top 3 or 4 have been the last few years, if any one of those guys had a major injury, I would automatically have that person slide down 3 or 4 spots. And that's what I have this year. I think Jeremy Buendia will not retain the title. I think you're going to see him slide down to 3rd or 4th. And I think you're going to see a new champion. Now, that new champion, I think you've really got 2 guys. It's a battle of 2 guys. This is a story that's been going on for a few years. This is a competition where one guy beat the other guy 4 times in a row a couple years ago, and the other guys beat the other guy 4 or 5 times in a row here the last year and a half. This is something to see. This is the Cubs and Cardinals. This is the Yankees and the Red Sox. You know, Brandon Hendrickson and Andre Ferguson. And a few years ago, they were actually buddies. They actually spoke very highly about each other. Not anymore. The gloves are off. They go at it. Andre has beat Brandon now every single show for the last year and a half, including last year's Olympia and this past year's Arnold. It's going to be a dogfight. You've got Raymond Edmonds, who's really been on the move coming up here in the last year and a half, has really established himself as one of the top 3 or 4 men's physique competitors in the country. Then you have a veteran, George Brown. Now, for as successful as George Brown has been for years, he was reminded last year by Jeremy Buendia that, believe it or not, George Brown has never been in the top 5 at the Olympia. That was a surprise to me when I heard that. I guess I didn't realize that. I know he slid down the last few years. George has been on a decline. Some of that conversation really got to him. Seen him in the last 2 months. This is going to be a new George Brown. I think this is the first year you see George not only in first callouts, but jump up into that top 5. I think that's another big story, because he's supposed to be a guy on a second end and the back 9 of his career. I think he's got new life and new energy. That means I see Jeremy Potvin and Ryan Terry both sliding out of the top 5. I think the new champ will be Brandon Hendrickson. I think he's going to edge out Andre Ferguson. Andre has the best back in the men's physique division. I think Brandon, with his conditioning, his balance, his symmetry, his fullness to his chest, his little waist, I think all of those details put together will slightly edge out. I'm talking about maybe a 1-point difference of Andre Ferguson, who has a superior back, hands down. But the show isn't won by only one body part. Again, Andre's got a complete package, no doubt. He's been the best men's physique competitor, other than Jeremy Buendia, for the last couple years. I think this year Brandon goes back and beats Andre again. Brandon Hendrickson first. Andre Ferguson second. I think Jeremy Buendia slides down to 3. Raymond Edmonds finishes 4th, and George Brown finishes 5. Both of those 2 are taller and bigger athletes. I just think standing next to Ryan Terry, it's not a great matchup for Ryan Terry standing next to those 2. I don't think it's a great matchup for Jeremy Potvin standing next to those 2. You've got Andre Kamats from the Czech, I believe. I think you're going to see him in that 7-8 spot. and Akeem Scott, the new kid on the block. He's another tall, big athlete. Still has a lot of refining to do. Still has some more balance he needs. But I think that rounds out the top 10 there. Ryan Terry, Andre, Akeem Scott, Logan Franklin, Jeremy Potvin. I think that rounds out the top 10 in men's physique. Gonna be something to see on that stage, though. These guys will be battling hard. This division reminds me of the middleweights in the 80s, the boxers, where they just went after each other. You knew it was going to be 15 rounds, and it was going to be a dogfight. The Sugar Ray Leonards, the Hagler, Hearns. That's what it reminds me of. You know you're going to see 15 rounds of Steve moving these guys around, compared next to each other, and they're all so close. It's going to be exciting to watch. That's just my prediction from what I've seen the last few years in person on stage. Could be right, could be wrong, but I know one thing, it's going to be something to see. That wraps up the Classic Physique and Men's Physique division. Hope you were entertained, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see just how right I was. Guys, this is Mandus Buckle, Maximum Muscle Report, for your 2018 preview prediction show. Signing off. Till next time.